and you can't see the forest for the trees? Or do you hate organizing? You know what needs doing, but you just don't have a clue what to do to get started. Well, if that's you, you're in absolutely the right place, because tonight, Gil Donkersgood, my partner in crime, and I, Nelda Schulte from Alberta Landlords Watch, have a very special guest who is a professional organizer, and she organizes not only businesses for landlords, she organizes all kinds of things. She can organize your personal life, and she can even help you with an aging parent who might be wanting to downsize and just really can't figure out how to let go of all those possessions that they're so attached to. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Jerilyn, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Jerilyn's business is called Please Organize My Life, and her full name is Jerilyn Wolstenhome, which is a very good name. So welcome to Alberta Landlords Watch. For any of you who are new and watching for the first time, I'm your co-host, Nelda Schulte, and my business is suspiciously the same as my back banner here, neldaschulte.com. And I help do-it-yourself landlords with free resources and some very reasonably priced resources so that you can self-manage. Mm-hmm. And I'm joined by my co-host, Gil Donkersgood.
Hello.
Welcome, Gil.
Thank you.
Gil and I used to run a property management business together, and before that we ran a landlord-tenant matchmaker business, which was way more fun than the property management business. So we've got a really long background in landlording and property management. We also own our own properties, and I've been a landlord for probably over 18 years at this point. So I've got a couple of years on me, even though I'm only 39. So good for me. I also wrote a book, which is something I never, ever mentioned. Not ever, not even once. It's called The Canadian Landlord's Handbook. And you can buy it on Amazon.ca. If you want the hard copy, it's $17. If you want the e-learning version, it's $1.49, which is very inexpensive and almost, well, it's almost silly for you not to have it. So with that said, if you like this program, you like this show, like it, share it with your friends and your family. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, to the Alberta Landlords Watch. And now I'm going to welcome Jerilyn, and we're going to stop talking about us, and we're going to start talking about Jerilyn. So welcome, Jerilyn. Thanks again for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too. Why don't you start telling us by how you can help landlords, or how you do help landlords?
Well, just want to sort of describe some of the jobs that I've done with some landlords in the past. So I find a lot of times when people just own a few properties, they have a lot of the information in their head. And then it comes up time for when they need to go on vacation. And they don't sort of have any support to have someone cover them when they're away. So some people have hired me just kind of as an emergency call service while they've been away. And then I have coordinated hiring the plumber or just sort of dealing with any last minute emergencies so that they could sort of enjoy their vacation and not be doing that from a beach on the middle of Jamaica. So that's one service that I've offered in the past, and a way I can be a support to landlords who don't have a whole team and a whole they don't have their own staff.
That's a really brilliant service, because actually we ran into that same issue. We couldn't go anywhere. Mm. If we did, we had to get somebody who was a licensed property manager or a real estate agent who was a licensed property manager, and they'd have to fill in for us. But we still had to bring our phones with us. We had to bring our computers with us. So I was always doing deals when I was away. So I was never really away. So boy, I wish I would have known about you a few years ago. It would have made my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And then what else do you do for people when you're in the organizing arena?
Well, a lot of property owners, even if it's just a busy family who have a single rental property, a lot of them are just really quite overwhelmed right now and just working a lot, and they're just spending a lot of their time just trying to sort of keep on top of things. And so a big part of what I do is just help people, even just at a time management level, to sort of do an assessment of where they're spending their time and help them sort of get back to having some time in their schedule for some of the things that they love to do, and have some time in their schedule to spend time with the people that they love. Because I find find that often those are sort of some of the things that go out the window first when you're under stress and when you're really busy. But those are sort of some of the things that we need to protect for our own mental health and for our own sanity. And so I find that just sort of having like a second set of eyes look at their life and sort of helping them to sort of better manage their schedule has just reduced a lot of the stress for the property managers and the entrepreneurs that I work with.
Boy, that's huge. And you hear that all the time, or you hear people saying, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else. But as an entrepreneur, you're always doing about 5,000 things. And it's hard to just let at least one of those things go so that you could do something nice for yourself.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times people think that when you talk about delegating, that you have to only delegate the business things. And not everyone has the financial resources to delegate the business things. So I encourage them to delegate the personal things. And then if you hire a housekeeper 3 hours a week, and then you have Saturday afternoon free instead of cleaning toilets, you can go out and have a glass of wine with a friend. And so sometimes it doesn't necessarily just have to be what you think it is. And people will say, well, I don't have money to hire an accountant or I full time, or I don't have money to hire an administration assistant full time. But I will sort of say, well, let's look at what your budget is and figure out some other quick wins for how we can save you some time. And then that also sort of alleviates a lot of the stress.
That's brilliant. I love the housekeeper thing.
That is a good idea. And the problem is a lot of people, if they try to take on more than they can take on, they'll just do a whole lot more work poorly. So you're not winning by overburdening yourself with more than you can handle.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do have to take some things off of your own plate, whether it's dry cleaning, like rather than doing your own laundry, sending stuff off to the dry cleaner. That was something I learned from my tenants and my roommates in Fort McMurray. These guys were all making a lot of money, and they worked a ton of hours. They never did their own laundry, and they didn't cook their own meals, so they'd go out for dinner. And on weekends, they had time for fun, whereas I was cleaning the house and doing the yard work and stuff. And I thought, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hire a cleaning lady.
Yeah.
It's once every 2 weeks so that I don't have to clean. I need to have a clean house because I'm not comfortable without a clean house, but I'm going to just do that one thing for me. And, you can claim that as an income tax deduction. At least I did, because it was business. The rental part was business. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. I always tell people I'm not buying house cleaning. I'm buying time with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
So just to sort of mentally reframe it that way, it just sort of helps to pay that bill a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Well, and the other way to think about it, I think, is it worth my time to clean houses, or to clean my house, or should I be working on, the business stuff that needs doing? If you prioritize it like that, it makes it also a little easier to swallow.
Okay. So one little homework exercise I'm going to leave our viewers with is I want you to take out your calculators and look at how much money you made last year, and divide that by the number of hours that you work in a year. So just do like 40 or 50 hours a week times 4 weeks times 12 months a year. Divide that dollar value by that number of hours. Just try and get a better understanding of what your time is worth per hour. So let's say you do that math and you come out with $125 an hour. So if you were doing your own cleaning, that essentially is costing you $375 for you to do that activity. So I think that it's just really important to think of things in terms of an opportunity cost. And when you start sort of having that mindset, you'll be a little bit more protective of your time and make some better decisions.
Love
I like
that.
that. That's good.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So how long have you been doing this work?
So I've owned the business for 19 years. This is my
Wow.
19th year in business. So survived a couple of recessions and survived COVID. And so, yeah, I really enjoy what I do. When I started the business, I focused on the residential organizing where I was decluttering homes. And then within a few years, I started organizing offices and working with entrepreneurs. And I think entrepreneurs are sort of one of my favorite people to work with with, because entrepreneurs have great ideas and they're great at what they do, but they sort of shoot themselves in the foot sometimes, and don't deal with the taxes and don't deal with the things that they don't like, and then that sort of ends up hurting them, and often that's why small businesses fail. And so I really feel like one of my strengths is just helping people to identify what are those things that you aren't doing in your business that you need to be paying attention to, and not necessarily saying that you are the one who has to deal with that, but just sort of doing an assessment and helping them get better connected with resources that can help fill that gap.
I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I have 4,100 phone numbers in my iPhone. So
Wow.
if I can't find somebody to help you, I can at least know somebody who knows somebody.
That's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Gil?
I think it's over to you now, Nelda.
Oh, it's over to me already.
We are there.
Mm-hmm.
And we already asked you about one tip for property. Well, yeah, okay, why not ask you this one? I thought you might have answered it, but if you had one tip for property owners, what would it be?
So I think one thing I would like to see property owners do is just make themselves a reference binder, and just use it for all of their contact information. Here's the alarm code for this building. Here's the property address. Any notes on something special about that building, like the type of air conditioner, what plumber you like to use, what company is doing the snow removal, and just have that as a physical reference for that property. Because right now that information is in your head, but right now you might own 3 apartment buildings, but in 10 years you might own 20. And so I think it's just really important to build systems not for how big you are, but for how big that you want to be. And so it also just really serves as a great reference if you go away, that you can pass that off to your brother-in-law or to a Jerilyn. And that way people are using the connections and the relationships that you've already put in place.
Oh, that's great. We used to do that with our property management business because there's such a plethora of details for each property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And a physical binder sounds old school, but in this digital age, people are forgetting their passwords so much. And then there's also the level of, if there was an unexpected death, then you're also providing your family with better information. One of the most heartbreaking stories I had is I worked with a family, and their father owned 30 businesses across the country, and he didn't have things documented. And so when they were going through his estate, sometimes they didn't even know where these physical offices were located because they were out of province. And so we just went through and just we're trying to even find the most basic details, let alone do their taxes and look through that. And so you always hope that will never happen to you or to a loved one. But I just think, why not just set people up for success so that that's something that they don't have to worry about through a difficult season in their life.
Exactly, because you're doing that not just for you, but you're doing it for the people that you leave behind as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, actually, I have a tenant he lives in my house here in Calgary, and I asked him if he had a will, because he's had some real health scares the last couple of years, and he said, "Oh no, I don't have a will, and I don't really have much." Blah blah blah. And I said, "Do you really want your daughters to have a big mess to clean up to go through when you leave? Like, you know what you're going to be putting them through if you don't have anything in place?" He goes, "Well, I thought I could just write a note." And I said, "It doesn't work that way." So he actually did see my lawyer, and he did get a will drafted up. So he did, which was good.
Good.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about that. They think, well, I don't have anything, I'll live forever, blah, blah, blah. But even if you don't have anything, especially if you're in a rental property, it gets very complicated very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You also help people who have elderly parents organize their space. I'm assuming that would be pretty challenging, though, because
you know what? Some families are in a place where it's an emergency situation and they need to downsize into like a care home. And then they're a lot more willing to do a purge because they sort of know the exact square footage of what they're moving into. So those people are sort of more willing to to sort through their things a little bit more quickly. People who are just sort of starting to think about downsizing, I think they struggle a little bit more with the memorabilia. But there's a lot of tips and tricks that we can do through that process to sort of still honor their stuff. And I always tell people it's not that I'm going to force you to get rid of everything. It's just that it just would be so lovely to have an opportunity to bless other people with the things that you're not using. And, you know, if you have like 3 sets of dishes in your 5,000 square foot home and you're about to, you know, your kids have bought you a condo, you know, it's time to just sort of see how ways that you can help other people. And you know, I work all over Canada, but here locally in Calgary, you know, we've really been donating a lot of things to the people who've been coming from the Ukraine. And, you know, they're just coming with so little that, you know, just thinking about the fact that the dish set is helping a new family, I think that really sort of alleviates some of the stress of letting go of things that they've worked really hard to purchase.
Mm-hmm. I really love the way you did that. That's such a gentle and kind way of honoring them and their possessions.
And it is a lovely thought too, because if there's stuff that has tremendous sentimental value to you, now it has an opportunity to have sentimental value to someone else who's just getting started, and so this stuff can go on forever. It never has to stop having its the sentimentality will always be there.
Yeah. And sometimes what I've done is I've taken photographs and made the client a scrapbook of some of those precious items so that they can look through the book and sort of, you know, tell some of those stories to other family members. So there's some tips and tricks that you can do just to sort of help that process be a little bit less difficult for them. You know, I think it's just really important to honor people's stories. And I think if sometimes just giving them the opportunity to tell their story and to feel like that's going to be preserved will help them to move into a different space.
That is lovely. Like Nelda and I have both we've both had parents that have moved into condos or smaller places, and we've had to face that. And it's nice to know that there's someone who can actually guide you through the process and make it less painful.
Yeah.
Well, even when I think of decluttering for myself, like I mean, I started out my first career as a musician, and I had a piano that I just didn't use anymore, and I had these music books I'd spent a fortune on, and I didn't want to just sell them. I wanted to make sure that whoever got them, and the same with my piano, really cherished what I had. And so I kind of in a weird way, I found somebody who really loved my piano and was just thrilled to have it. And they were just tickled pink, and they thanked me so much. And they were going to take very good care of it. And they said it was like a real luxury item for them. And they never thought they could afford a piano. And they were so pleased. So, I mean, my piano went to a good home.
Yeah.
And music books went to my 2 nieces who were both singers. And they were really happy to have them because musical scores cost a fortune. So, you know, all of that went to a good home. So I felt very good about giving that away. I couldn't just give it away to some stranger. It had to, so I understand how people who are, have had a longer time with their possessions would feel about honoring their possessions. And I also really love your idea about a scrapbook, because that's just such a nice way of kind of letting go in a very gentle way.
Yes, you're preserving it at the same time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you know, want to support the charities, but they don't know which charities will take what things. And they also, if they're hiring me because they don't have the time to get organized, how are they going to have time to drive across the city to women in need and drop off those clothes, right? So at the end of each of our organizing sessions, we take all of the donations from you, and then we disperse it to about 17 different charities in the city. And then that way you can know that they're sort of going to a good home and it doesn't sort of sit at the front door for 3 months.
Oh, that's great.
That's also lovely.
Yeah.
Well, what are the most frequent comments people make when you've helped them organize or declutter?
Well, a lot of times they tell me that they're not going for marriage counseling as much anymore because they're not fighting about it. So I think that's sort of like the nicest and the funniest feedback that I get. But I think that, you know, often I'll just hear comments like, I'm sleeping better, because they just sort of aren't ruminating at night and thinking about, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And I think there's just like an overall feeling of just being under less stress, because my philosophy isn't that everything has to be made to look like a show home. It's just that I want you to enjoy your home, right?
Mhm.
And that looks different for everyone. But I want you to be able to come home after a long day of work and sit in your living room and really enjoy your time off, not just sort of looking at piles thinking that it's stuff that you have failed at, you know?
Yes, clutter does sort of weigh on your psyche.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, every time I spring clean, I feel lighter, and
Yeah.
it kind of translates into everything. It's
Mhm,
yeah, it's funny how much it can free you up emotionally.
mhm.
So, what's the strangest thing you've ever been asked to do?
Okay.
To
Well, I've got an answer for that question, and you're going to be a little bit surprised. So, one man, and this was a number of years ago, hired me because he wanted to find a cheaper vasectomy. And so I said to him, I'm not sure that this is something that you need to prioritize saving money on, but I took him on as a client. And I researched all the different vasectomy clinics in Calgary and tried to get him the best price, and then found out that one of the vasectomy clinics gave discounts to firefighters, and so I got a firefighter sticker, put it on his vehicle. The owner of the clinic saw the firefighter sticker and gave him a discount on his vasectomy. So I have to admit, even like a number of years later, I still scratch my head about that one. But I think
I would have never in a million years thought
yeah,
of that. I thought you'd be some decluttering thing, but certainly not a vasectomy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm all for saving money, but I think that health isn't an area where we need to prioritize that. So
No.
Yeah, I would be looking, I would think that people would be looking for that particular area of the anatomy. They want someone really good, not
yeah,
necessarily the cheapest.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, okay. All right, that definitely did surprise me. I was first thinking, well, she won't surprise me because I've heard a lot of stuff, but
Yeah,
I am surprised.
yeah.
I'm just picturing the guy saying, "Well, what's the worst that could happen?"
Yeah, yeah. Mhm. But
So what's your
I just met a lot of people over the years, and I really enjoy helping people. I think like it's really important in life to sort of figure out what your job satisfier is. And for me, my job satisfier is helping people. And so, what that looks like is different. Like my job is different every day. Sometimes I'm helping people prepare for a move so that we can declutter and have better photographs. So, sometimes I'm helping someone who's selling their business to, go through their paperwork so that we've got a better operations manual. And so every day is different, but I really have been blessed to have a job that I really enjoy. And I'm just really thankful for the variety, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that would be very interesting. I
Mhm.
be
So,
very
how did you find your way into this career? Like, it's quite unique.
Yeah, well, as a child, I was super organized and I had trouble sleeping. And so I would get up in the middle of the night and label my parents' cassette tape collection. So I think a lot of it just is really sort of, I'm naturally prone that way. But how the business started is I had a career like many other people in oil and gas. And people would walk by my desk and say, Jerilyn, you're the most organized person I know. I just wish I could take you home. So, probably by about the time the 10th guy said that to me, I said, okay, Saturday at 2 o'clock. And so I organized his house and he was just thrilled. He told his neighbor, I organized his neighbor's house. They told their uncle, I organized the uncle's house. So before I knew it, my phone was sort of ringing off the hook with these side jobs, right? And I just sort of got to a point where I'm like, that something's wrong here. I have a job that I'm good at during the day, but I kind of hate.
Mhm.
And then I'm doing a job that I really love on the weekend, and it shouldn't be this way. So at that stage, I hired a business coach and I said, help me as a single person make this transition from doing it part-time to full-time. And to be honest, it took me a year and a half before I just felt ready to resign and to know that the lights were going to stay on. But within that year and a half, I really set myself up well so I didn't have debt, and so that I was ready to do the business full-time. And I just sort of went from there, and I just, feel so blessed that it grew and grew. Yeah.
That's an excellent story.
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
You had kind of got your business started through work. People just walking past your desk.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think you've already answered that question. What do you enjoy most about your job? I mean, you mentioned about the variety, about everything's different every time, and you never know when somebody calls you what they're going to ask for.
And I think even more so, it's just helping people, like just getting those testimonials that they're not going for marriage counseling anymore, and seeing the look on their kids' faces that when they say to mom, now I have a place to play, or seeing the husband come in the door after a day of work and just like the wonder on their eyes that now they can find things in the kitchen to make their favorite meal. And so I think it's just really an opportunity to bless other people. And that's sort of my heart. Yeah.
So what do you think of the Maria Kondo shows? Because I love watching her shows.
Well, to be honest, I have a little bit of mixed feelings about her, because I think when you pile everything together, it can just be a little bit overwhelming for people and they can't get that done that day. And so for me, I'm sort of hesitant to do that. So let's use the analogy of clothes, for example. If we piled, everything on your bed, at the end of my day, we wouldn't have maybe finished that room. And then I've left your home and you've got half of your stuff still there. And so I really sort of try to do things systematically. So I work room by room, because I think it's just really important that people see that progress along the way, because emotionally they need to sort of experience that win to know that they're going to be successful. And when you have like this, huge pile of clothes that is going to take you 3 weeks to go through, they don't have that dopamine hit. And that really is what's needed for habit change. I've spent a lot of time researching habit change in the last couple of years, because I've realized that's essentially what I'm doing, right? Is I'm trying to help people have better habits. And a really important part of habit change is people need to see that change and see the win quite quickly, or otherwise they get too discouraged and they don't continue and complete that habit for the 30 days that are needed for that change to take place.
Oh, that's great. So I have a couple neighbors who are hoarders. And have you worked with hoarders before? I know it's different than just somebody who has clutter, and it's recognized by the Alberta Human Rights, I forgot it, Human Rights Act. Usually when I need to remember a name, I can't remember it. Okay.
Yeah.
The Human Rights Act it's a human rights issue. So if you report your neighbor as a hoarder, they can issue them a fine. However, it's a psychological problem. So police can't go in and change things unless there's a dead person there, or it poses a health risk. So have you worked with hoarders before?
So I have a little bit in the past. It's not my favorite type of client, to be honest, but I just sort of have a boundary that I won't work with a hoarder unless they're seeing a psychologist at the same time. So a lot of times when you get a phone call about a hoarder, it's the family that's calling me, not the person who needs help. And I just, in good conscience, can't have you pay me to help, fix their home and then know that in a month it's going to look the same. I can't take your money knowing that that's not going to have that value. And so I've just always sort of had the rule that they need to be seeing a counselor at the same time. And not everyone is open to that. And even sometimes I've gotten pushback from the family saying, oh, they don't need that, but that they do need that extra support. And the professional organizers of Canada has a Calgary chapter, and some of the other organizers in Calgary have a designation where they've done hoarder training. And so I think nowadays I would sort of defer to them, because a lot of them have like a social work background.
Okay.
And just are a little bit more uniquely qualified, because that's sort of not my specialty. And I want to just make sure that they get someone who's really used to working with some of those unique challenges that come alongside that.
Yeah. Because that's a totally different kettle of fish.
I don't
Yes,
even
actually,
know
one of my neighbors and I noticed we've got a hoarder on the corner, and I said I was going to call the city about it, and she said, I did call the city, but I don't think that if they issue them a fine, it's going to do them any good. She said, I was thinking about going in and saying, look, I've done my spring cleaning, can I help with yours? And I was like, I don't really want to touch someone's stuff. And she was asking me if I was interested in that. And I said, no, and plus I said, it's not just an organizational problem. It's much deeper than that. Like we all have behaviors that we have when we're stressed out.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to overwork, like a lot of entrepreneurs just work constantly. You know, some people find food gives them solace. Other people start collecting stuff. So there's a root in everything that we do.
Yeah. And a lot of times when you dig into the story of hoarders, there's been a trauma in the past. So one of the hoarder jobs that I did take approximately 5 years ago, my heart broke for this woman. And so I decided to take the job. And she hadn't cleaned her house in 16 years, right?
Oh,
So you know, the magazines were old, you know, the mail was old, like just nothing had been touched. And you know, one day I just very gently asked her, like, what happened 16 years ago, you know, and her husband at the age of 44 had a heart attack and died. And so she just was devastated and just emotionally shut down and didn't leave the house very often. And just didn't feel she had the capacity to keep up with things. So I just encourage you not to judge them too hard until you sort of know their story, because a lot of times there's a lot of heartbreak behind some of those situations, and they just, you know, don't always have the finances to access the resources that they need. You know?
Yeah, very true. Very true. It'd be nice if the city had some sort of resources for them where you could call in and say, you know, could there be some support for them? Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that, though.
So, when it comes to your business clients, do you see any trends happening nowadays?
So a lot of the work that I've been doing this last year is almost what I would diagnose as mental clutter. So I'm finding a lot of the entrepreneurs just have so much on their mind that they're just feeling so overwhelmed that they're struggling to get some regular, even easier tasks done in their business because they just feel like there's so much to do that they don't know where to start. And that mental clutter in their mind is actually really preventing their business from moving forward. So a lot of my business sessions in this last year have just sort of been a process of helping them to get all that information out, get that on paper, and then bring them the supports that they need to work on those different areas. And often just the process of talking through those things helps us to identify what it is that they're really being bothered by. And so a lot of times they'll say, you know, this is what we need to focus on. But when I start to listen to their story, you know, I'll find that, no, actually, you're just stressed about, you know, employee performance reviews next week. And how about if we make a quick worksheet so that we have some key questions to guide that conversation, just to give you a bit more confidence in doing something that you haven't done before. And that can just sort of help to take some of that load off their mind. So that work is quite customized to each person. So a lot of times I'll just sort of explain to people, you know, we'll do maybe a physical declutter of their office. Then we'll sort of build some systems that are specific to that company. And then we'll just really sort of work on trying to improve some of those processes within their business to help alleviate some of their stress.
Oh, that's great. So a big chunk of your job is listening and hearing what they don't say, as well as hearing what they do say.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think as business owners, when we've done well in one of areas of our life, it's hard to talk about the things that we're not good at, right? And I always use the analogy that, you know, I'm 47 years old and I still can't cook. I hate cooking. I can't stand it. I hire a lady to make me frozen dinners and I pick up a freezer full every month because that's just something that I'm not good at. And, you know, I could spend hundreds of hours learning how to and get good at it, but I don't want to because it's just not something that I enjoy. way. So I just think a big part of it is just giving them permission to not be good at everything, because I just think as entrepreneurs, we put so much pressure on ourselves to perform when we're hardwired to be accomplishment driven people. And so I think a big part of that conversation is just saying that, it's okay for you not to do this. It's okay for you not to be good at this. Let's try and figure out another way to solve that.
I think that's really excellent.
Mhm.
You don't have to be good at everything. And
Mhm.
what can you outsource? And if it's cooking, I outsourced cooking at different times. At
Mhm.
one point, I had different meals. I'm vegan, so it's a bit of a different kettle of fish for me, or non-fish. But yeah, cooking can take up a lot of time. I think that's the thing about it that bothers me the most is by the time you go grocery shopping and then you cook stuff, especially if you're eating plant-based food, cooking ahead, putting stuff in containers, putting it in the fridge, and then cleaning up afterwards. I'm like, ugh.
Mhm.
I would like the robotic arms that does all that for me, and I could just plug the little recipes into it, and it could just do all that and clean up for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
So
I like your suggestion too. I don't mind cooking. I just don't like to do it when I don't have the time.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And I enjoy cooking, but I'm not a very good organizer. So,
Hmm.
this is the opposite side of that. But as you said, everybody has their strength.
Yeah. And then I think another, sometimes some of the pushback I would get when we're sort of talking about delegating is, someone who maybe just owns a few rental properties might not have the finances in order to be able to delegate something right away. So I really encourage people to use barter. Someone like Gil could, make some extra meals with his leftovers and then barter, giving those meals to someone else for someone who could come and tidy up his office, right? So just try to brainstorm, other services that you can provide, maybe even outside of your business that you could do on barter to bless other people, and that would be a way to sort of help manage your cash flow in those early years.
What a smart idea.
That
Mhm.
is a good idea. It actually has some very practical applications that I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, well, I can see the gills turning. I can see
Yeah.
the gears turning.
Yeah. 'Cause people,
I used to barter a lot. I had an opera company many years ago, and I used to barter all the time when we first started because I just didn't have any money at all.
yeah.
So I bartered all kinds of things. And I taught singing lessons, so I frequently bartered singing lessons. If they did set production, all this, that I'd work them into my schedule. So
Yeah,
that worked out.
good for you. Yeah. And sometimes people will say, well, my business isn't structured that I could barter my services. And I'll say, yes, but you play guitar. So couldn't you do guitar lessons on a Saturday afternoon, And so don't limit it to just what you're doing for work. Just try and look at the whole picture of sort of what your skill set is.
I love that. Yeah. Actually, a friend of mine she was getting her PhD and she also ran a business, and she was going through her stuff because her husband died unexpectedly, and she was looking at these music books that she had, piano books, and she thought, well, I don't want to get rid of them, and I'd like to keep them, and then she started thinking, well, maybe I could teach piano lessons again. That might be kind of fun for me to do. So she contacted music school and then ended up teaching piano lessons on Saturdays. I think she had 3 students. And so that kind of gave her some extra income. She really liked doing it. The books went to good use. Her training went to good use. And she was, again, it was sort of like honoring her music background and the books without throwing them out or, giving them away or whatever. It was, I don't think she really needed the money, but it just fit what she wanted to do at the time.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I love your suggestion.
Yeah.
So if people want to get hold of you, they want more information, or they want to ask you more weird questions, how do they get hold of you, Jerilyn?
So I would recommend checking out my website. It's just pleaseorganizemylife.com. And on the website, I have a contact form. And if you don't mind just filling that out, that sort of just lets me know the best time to reach you, because entrepreneurs often, are really tied up during the day, and you might want your free consultation to be a Thursday evening, not, sort of during business hours. And so I just want to really work around your schedule. And after you fill out that contact form, I will touch base with you and set up a time. And I give a free 1-hour consult. And during that consult, I'll describe my services. I'll sign a confidentiality agreement with you so that whether you hire me or not, you know that your secrets are safe, because my friends don't care about what your cupboards look like anyways. And just sort of ask you some questions to sort of, really try and get to the root to what's sort of causing you the most frustration right now. And that consult typically takes like 45 to 60 minutes. And I just do that on Zoom. And then after that consult, I provide you with an estimate in terms of the total number of hours so that you would have a price for the project. And that sort of helps you budget and decide if you want to move forward.
That's brilliant. I think an hour of consultation is a huge amount of time. That's very generous.
Mm-hmm.
Very generous indeed. I've certainly learned a ton just from the short time that we've asked you a few questions, and I've gotten some ideas. So,
As have I. Yes.
what are your ideas? Are you getting, Gil?
Well, this is fairly basic, but I mean, I do the guitar thing. I haven't really been motivated to teach, but I also sail, so I could say, if you work in my office cleaning up for a while, I'll take you out in the boat. So, that could possibly be a pretty.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm begging people to come sailing, but I could turn it. It's like that old thing about you put a sign on the end of your driveway that says free cats, and no one takes them, but you say cats $10 and they'll come in. So maybe I could get more crew by telling them they'd have to work for it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't think I want to barter anything right now.
Mhm.
But I probably will in the future because life always changes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll think of something. But anyway, if I want your services, I know where to reach you. I know how to get hold of you. And I really love the way you described your process. And I love the way you just have a very kind, holistic way of dealing with people and their things, very humane approach, which is just really beautiful to see. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Whenever I think of organizers, I think of taskmasters, and I don't get the feeling that that's your way.
Yeah. Well, I just want to, want people to feel safe. And I recognize that I'm helping people do something that they don't enjoy. Right. And so it's just kind of like for them, it sort of feels like the equivalent of going to the dentist. I love paperwork. And if I could just have my job, just be organizing paperwork all month, I'd be in heaven. But, I have to do a certain amount of offices in order to get enough billable hours in the month. But I recognize that even though it's fun for me, it's not fun for you. And so I just want to make that experience a little bit less painful. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. No numbing involved. No anesthesia.
Yeah.
Nothing like seeing a dentist. And you feel immediately better afterwards, which is like, I don't know, after I paid my dentist, I don't feel immediately better. So thank you so much, Jerilyn, for sharing your wealth of talents and your kindness and expertise with us. And we will be posting this on YouTube and on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And for those of you who liked this program, please subscribe and like it, share it with your friends. And if you're looking for more do-it-yourself landlord resources, by all means, go on to neldaschulte.com and buy my book. Look at that. I just happen to have it handy. All right. Thanks so
If
much,
you need help, go to Jerilyn's website and let her help you get organized.
Please organize my life. We'll post all of this in the YouTube video. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye-bye.